This is Jason Reed Pratt, author of Cry of Justice. Have you ever wanted me to just zip through one of my multiplayer turns against Barthheart without actually showing all the various moves and fighting in our game of Decisive campaigns, the Blitzkrieg from Warsaw to Paris, from Matrix Slitherine and VR Designs, whose name I have finally gotten right more than once in a row, perhaps? Me too. Turn 6, September 11th, 1939. I refuse to be lulled into a false sense of complacency about this part. Why? Because of this. Our losses jumped up to around 6% from around 4% in one turn, which is not unexpected under the circumstances, but those circumstances are 3 or 4 or 5 whole cores of mine being cut off and slagged. Under those circumstances, I suppose I'm glad it's only 6%. I mean, I'm glad Bart's losses are over 1/4 now, but I really need to step up my pace. I'm almost halfway through the operation. In real life, the Nazis could sort of rely on their enemies just sitting around to be bypassed, defending themselves and waiting to be picked off later. But I can't expect Barth to do that. He's looking for every chance to counter-surge me, and so I have to fight as I keep on going instead of just bypassing people. Fortunately, in a way, my suspicions about the game being broken in its counting of victory points turned out to be mostly false. I should have 27 points starting this turn, but I've only got 26. One of the towns, specifically Katowice, which I took on turn 1, has either been falsely marked on the map as a major city, or else its VP marker is broken. If it's broken, this means I have to take Warsaw to win, because Bart will always have one victory point hanging that I can never score, to keep his 11 points if he's still holding Warsaw. And as my pre-turn strategy maps will show, I'm still a long way from halfway to Warsaw. We'll start the doom scroll on the southeast corner as usual. As I go around the map, I'll point out any new and current trouble from Barth. This infantry chip across the river and blown bridge is still cutting off one of my armored brigades from returning. I'll point my troops in yellow, Bart's in various colors depending on what seems to show up best, maybe orange. However, my 2 corps over here have gotten some supply this turn, and so we'll be able to do something, I hope. This doomed corps, on the other hand, still hasn't gotten any supply to its divisions. But its headquarters in the middle has scrounged up supply from somewhere, enough to move out of the mountains and onto a road, I hope. If I can open up enough roads this turn, I may be able to save enough of these brigades to be able to do something with them. My corps in the yellow circle, at the southwest corner, has gotten some supplies too, so they'll be able to try accomplishing something, at least opening up the roads farther. Bart's counter-blitzing units under the orange stars have apparently run out of gas, or near enough. We'll see if I can catch up to them this turn. And where I've drawn the little orange arrows, Bart has pulled back to concentrate his defense around Krakow better. A frontal assault isn't going to work against that, which is the main reason why I need my southwest corner up and running again. Scrolling up a notch, you can see some of my fast-moving hunter groups coming down to cut off his counter-blitzers and clear the road network. Mostly in this corner, Bart has pulled down some units from somewhere to try to re-establish a defensive line around that orange dot city I've got circled. I've forgotten the name and can't really read it in this zoom. This also blocks me from coming up in more force against Lots, or Lotes, not sure how to pronounce that. Scrolling up again, Barth has pulled out of Posen, an orange dot city in the orange circle, in order to try to slow down my push from northward, and especially has taken the opportunity to pocket my whole 3rd Panzer Division in the yellow circle. They're a powerful unit, and although I'm sure I'll be able to extract them, they'll have taken some lumps, and so will be weaker now than they would have been. I have no one to blame but myself for rolling them so far downward in exposed territory. Zipping up to the Polish port corridor, where Gdynia continues holding out, that unit they spawned last turn has whooshed back around and is heading for Danzig. If Bart thinks I'm going to let that stand, he's sorely mistaken. But it's a good idea, because if he can do it, he'll nick off another point from my score, and it isolates the strongest units in the area, he thinks, from supply. That brings us to East Prussia, where Bart has eliminated 2 brigades of the 206th standing their ground between the lakes, and I doubt that other brigade I've circled is going to escape. It's out of supply and can only fall back. The whole division won't be wiped out, yet anyway, because one of the 206th Brigades escaped down near Vodrig's Corps, and I used the headquarters shift button to attach it there. Vodrig's Corps itself fell back into the corridor as planned while under Barth's attack, and although they've lost a lot of trooping, I may still be able to rescue them. The route is still open, and I'll try to secure it. The Polish sure have a lot to celebrate over here in any case. This is what happens if the Wehrmacht doesn't bring over 40-to-1 odds against them. For the after-turn doom scroll, let's focus first on that east-northern sector. Even though I went ahead and sent the remainder of Brand's group down to punch back some cavalry, look how far away I am from the two nearest Orange Point cities. And that's at almost halfway through the operation. I'm not even anywhere near the original Polish defense against more than 40-to-1 odds, near Wisna.
They were less than 1,000 Polish soldiers. There were over 40,000 German soldiers. They held them for 3 days! And they were outnumbered 40-to-1!
I have to acknowledge reality here. I have lost this side of the fight. My only hope, which won't be anytime soon, will be to pull my 2 corps over here back to where I've marched down the Königsberg Garrison Division's brigades. Next turn, if I can, I'll be rolling the Lotson Division back toward home. Similarly, even though I've strengthened the route out of Vodrig's pocket, and even though I've taken the opportunity, with my own doomed cavalry, to cut off one of Barth's cav brigades, I'm still going to be pulling back Vodrig's corps northward until I can mount a blocking defense back in supply. At this point, the best I can hope for is to keep Barth from rampaging around East Prussia until I can roll some fast movers south of this area to cut his counterattackers off from supply. Can I do that? Well, maybe. Guderian's 19th Corps was supposed to have been over here being plowed to a stop for 3 days by the Polish defenders at Wisna. Instead, they started in the northwest corner. But most of them, except the trapped 3rd Panzer Division, are in a position to start slicing over eastward. Unfortunately, that's more southeastward than eastward. But that's also the road to Warsaw, where all Polish supply comes from, so I'm not too unhappy about the necessary axis of their thrust as they're cleaning out defenders on the Vistula River. The real saviors of the East-East front, if there are to be any, will be the corps of the awesomely named Falkenwrath, and his good buddy who helped clear out that initial Polish pocket around Graudunz, which you can see in the upper left of this snapshot with one of the engineering groups preparing to fix the bridge. I've got a lot of engineers rolling around the next few turns repairing supply routes like that. Falkenwrath, I love that name so much, doesn't have the fast rolling punch of Guderian, but he's got Kempf's group and the 110th Panzer Regiment, or 11-0 or whatever it's called, which is currently up north helping clean out the Polish port area. And he's got a lot of infantry to help slowly blitz behind Barth's Malowa forts, and then eventually, I hope, behind that giant unstoppable Polish tsunami rolling over Vodrig and Brand. And, despite more rain this turn, air recon assures me Barth has nothing down there to stop us from blitzing around his defensive line to sack his quarterback. So I'm not totally riding off the northeastern front yet. Speaking of the Polish port corridor, I've finally secured the Marie cities, and next turn I should be able to relieve my security trains protecting Elbing from Barth's counter-thrust. I have also marched Eberhardt's brigade back into and around Danzig. If Barth wants to run his defenders out of Gdynia, he's welcome to it. Although I suspect he'll try to hit those green shoots still sieging the city while he has a chance. This and the 10th Panzer Division has trapped his little runners, and we should be done with them soon. Another 2 or maybe 3 turns to finish off this area at last. Sliding south again to where the northwestern and western fronts are converging, here's Guderian's corps again, for reference. The very essence of Blitzkrieg is, of course, to run one motorized artillery battery back behind your foes and cut off all their supplies by video game magic. I did manage to pull 3rd Panzer Division back out of that pocket I ineptly rolled into, not without some bruising. I'm not sure I can keep Bart's pocketed peeps there from rushing back southeast, which could be a serious problem for my army headquarters I was scouting with in the yellow circle there, currently helping some green shoots cut off a cavalry brigade from sneaking out behind us. But Oberkommander Heer's ad hoc group has pushed over the river now and taken position in the orange circle, so Bart's trapped troopin won't be able to get out that way. And I've got engineers rolling down there to fix the bridges for supply. Also, that spare division I summoned up back around turn 2 continues to creep along, clearing the road line of Polish control. I'm pretty sure from air recon in earlier turns that Barth doesn't have a surprise there, but I'll be safe if so, and I don't want supply surprises later either. 10th Corps, over on the right side of this snapshot, has pushed entirely over the Warsaw now, probing to see what kind of damage they might do. Here's 10th Corps again, showing Warsaw for comparison. At the moment, they're sort of racing Guderian for the city. It's still a long way to go, and no doubt it'll be heavily defended as I approach, but amazingly, 10th Corps seems to be in the lead of the whole army group at the end of this turn. Moving south to the Lotz area, or Lotz, I really need to look that up. Well, I guess technically this brigade is in the lead, but I don't think he or his division will be advancing toward Warsaw for another few turns. They'll be busy trying to get back around Lotz to cut it off from supply. Nothing too terribly exciting here this turn. I'm fixing bridges and slowly pushing defenders back toward Lotz, but I wasn't able to get around behind them to the west, although I did take that orange dot city whose name I've forgotten down there. I'm also taking the opportunity to start consolidating some of my divisions, moving them off east and southeast closer to where their headquarters have gotten. Zooming out a little for context, you can see that I've managed to push this motorized division in the far lower right pretty far enough that Barth might try to snap their supply by marching those chips south where I've got the orange lines. I'll be able to deal with that if he does, but it would slow them down a few turns. You can also see Warsaw again in this shot, along with the 10th Corps for comparison. Scrolling south again to what used to be the Czestochowa line, you can see where I'm trying to get some of those divisions back toward. A number of those headquarters helping push the line don't have all their divisions nearby and need them back. You will also have noticed this little coup. I managed to run a mechanized division back around Barth's defensive line. I haven't quite snapped his supply there, but it's following an awfully circuitous route into that snapshot, a route I can easily snap next turn. It's also pretty likely that Barth will run backward, cutting off my mechanized division from their own supply, but they'll be okay for a turn or two. Zooming out some more, here's what I mean by his supply for the pocket being circuitous. Follow the orange lines back northeast toward Warsaw. Oh, and what is that division down there toward the bottom of the snapshot doing? Aside from threatening the supply for that pocket even more than it already is? Well, that mobile division is working on trying to get around that massive blotch of Barthian troops protecting Krakow. My infantry stack north of it was trying to help too, but I'll probably pull it back and down a bit next turn to protect against Barth trying to surge some of his defenders north from around the city to snap off my run around his backfield. Pocketing Krakow is my main hope for defeating all those troops at all, much more so in time to win the operation, because Barth has managed to cripple my attempts at getting behind it to the south. Not entirely so, but we'll see that in a minute. Zooming out and west again for context, we can see that I've still got 8th Division blocking any advance from Krakow, although honestly I wouldn't be surprised if Barth tries that anyway. He may not know how few troops I've got there, but if he finds out, well, it depends on how he uses them. I'm repairing my supply problems westward caused by his brilliant little counter-blitzes. I haven't attacked those chips yet, but they've been cut off from supply themselves for a while, so they aren't long for this world. Pulling back one last time to show the southern front and its relation to this mess, my trapped Corps HQ was able to get to a road after all, so maybe I'll be able to get supplies to its steadily dying divisions now, pretty much at half strength or less. Despite those problems continuing, and despite the rain again, supply in the south has improved a lot this turn. Everything in the green arc was back in supply, and I was able to probe them a lot farther than I was expecting. Far enough that they might be able to help pocket Krakow. In fact, the only reason I'm fighting Barth's blocking infantry at the yellow X to the bottom right is just to rescue my errant armored brigade wandering around over there. But Barth's Polish defenders were not impressed with the Slavic Nazi fanboys. I don't think I'm going to be able to move any of that group over to the right to go after those orange dot cities anytime soon, though. I also don't think Barth's going to be able to move that Zakopane infantry any farther, which he used to such great effect in killing half that corps by itself. But just to be safe, I'm leaving artillery parked at the mouth of the southern pass, while I run the various headquarters and engineer units back around north again to help improve supplies and fix a bridge, again to help supplies. That ends my account of the battle, hopefully in less time than previously. The rate of my own casualties has ticked up dramatically, as the stats show, which is to be expected thanks to Barth's successful counterattacks and supply counter-blitzes north and south, while Barth's own casualties have sloped off a bit. With the 2 or 3 significant pockets I'm developing, I hope to ratchet that back up in the next 2 or 3 turns. But we'll see where things stand next time at the halfway point of the game, after it's now Barth's turn of doom. Doom, 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 doom.